Hi, I'm Meredith from Beadalon, and I'm going to show you how to make a wrap bracelet using Beadalon wire. Wrap bracelets are very popular right now, and a lot of people are wearing them. Usually I see people wearing them made out of leather. So I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to see how it turned out if I made a wrap bracelet with Beadalon silver plated or silver color wire. And I thought it turned out really nicely. So today I'm going to teach you how to make one. The first step is to measure the wire. So I like to use a .024 wire for my base. You could use a .018 or even a .030, and that will really determine how bright and how heavy looking your bracelet is. So to determine how much wire you need, I like to just wrap it around my wrist 2 times, or if I want to make a 3-wrap bracelet, around 3 times. Find where that center point is, double my wire, and snip it off. I'll do my wrap with a .012 wire. I find using a .012 wire really makes a much nicer and tighter weave, but you can also experiment with thicker or even thinner wire. So for the 012, I'll take about 5 feet, which is about my wingspan. And snip that off. The next step is to take a number 4 crimp tube and thread that over the 2 wires. Now here is where you need to determine what your clasp is going to look like. I've used buttons as clasps for these bracelets. You could also use a bead. The important part is to make sure that this loop will fit comfortably over your button, but not too much that it's going to fall through. You always want to back it up just a little bit to account for the crimp cover that you're going to attach, and take the thin wire and thread it through. Using your mighty crimping pliers, crimp that crimp tube down. Before I attach the crimp cover, first I'll come in and just snip that little end off, nice and clean, and then I will attach a 7mm sparkle crimp cover. Take care to make sure that all of my wires stay on the inside so I don't get them caught as I'm closing the crimp cover. And then I'm just going to go ahead and double check that my button still fits through. Much better to realize that mistake now than when you've already done your whole bracelet. So now we're ready to start weaving our wrap bracelet. We'll use our handy dandy clipboard as our tool. Just clip that underneath. Sometimes I like to put a little piece of cardboard there just to prevent damage to the wire. Move the long, thin wire out of the way and separate the 2 thicker wires and clip them at the bottom of the board. Now the weave is a figure 8 loop. So I like to start with just 1 or 2 loops, both as a decorative element and also to start locking the wire into place. So I will come underneath my bottom wire, through the 2 center wires, over the top wire, and back through the center. And that is the figure 8 that will start your bracelet. I'm just going to tighten that up, make sure that I have that first pass nicely done. Then I will come through the bottom again. After you've come through the bottom, that's the time to add your first bead. Now as you can see, you can make these bracelets with all different types of beads. I have some crystal here, some Swarovski, some thunder polished crystal, and here I'm just using some agate beads. And the effect is really nice, really no matter what you use. So once you have that bead strung, you want to push it into place. Bring that long wire around the top and through the center. Now don't worry if the bead kind of falls out of place here. We'll lock it in with this step. So now we'll take our wire, go back through that bead and pull it tight. And I'm just going to tighten that up and move my bead right into place. Now I'm ready to add my next bead. So once again, I've ended with the wire coming over top of this bottom wire here. I'll go under that wire, through, pick up a bead, string it, come over top of the wire, through again, and back through that bead. If my wire gets a little tangled on my clip, I'll just push those edges down to lock that into place. And I'm going to tighten it up, and with the 012 wire, it really should act just like thread and tighten right up into place. Again, I'm ready to add my next bead, so I come underneath, up and through, add another bead, pull it into place, up around the top wire, through the middle, back through the bead, tighten it up, and into place. Now I'll continue adding beads and doing a figure 8 to lock them into place until I have the bracelet the size that I want. I can do 1 route, 2, 3, or 4, and if I need to add more wire, as I've done here, I added wire in the middle, used a crimp tube to connect the wires together, and then just covered it with a crimp cover. When I'm wearing it, you can barely tell, but it also is a nice design element. I've now strung up and done the figure 8 weave with my beads, and I'm going to just double check and make sure that it is a good length for my wrist. I like how that's going to lay. So now it's time to straighten it out and add my clasp. So you can see that there's a little bit of a curve here in my bracelet, and because it's wire, you can just slide the beads around so that they're evenly spaced. If you've made a couple loops too loose, this is a good time to wiggle them around and make sure that everything is all set. I'll take my clipboard out of the way. You can see this a little bit better. So just like we did in the beginning, we're going to go ahead and do one more figure 8 to tighten those wires together to match the other side, and also to get it ready to add our crimp tube. So on this side, I'm going to go ahead and add a crimp tube over my 2 thick pieces of wire, and then I'm going to thread in the thin piece. Once again, I'm just going to make sure that everything is straightened up, and I'm going to come in here with my mighty crimper and crimp that tube into place. Now I will cut off that thin wire, so I'm only left with 2 wires to work with. I'll come in here with my my size 7mm crimp cover again, and using my mighty crimping pliers, give that a squeeze to cover up that crimp. And now I am ready to add my clasp. So to add the clasp, I'll string up another crimp tube, my button, come back around and through the crimp tube. Now you want to tighten it up, but not so tight that that button doesn't have a little bit of wiggle room to move around. If you need to, you can get a pair of pliers to help finesse those wires into place. So I need to leave a little bit of room for my crimp cover, and I'm going to go ahead and crimp down that crimp tube. Almost done. I'll come in with my nipper tool and cut those two wires off and add one last crimp cover. And there you have it, a wire wrapped bracelet made with silver plated or silver color Beadalon wire with a button closure.